Okay, what I'm doing now is I wanted to discuss what I'm looking for when I'm looking for bait, and I'm listening for flicks, and I actually can see bait fish flicking the water over here. So I'm going to move my way over here. So when I get to a flat, first thing I'm looking for is birds, of course, and then I start looking for action, for flicks. I'm seeing a bird over there that just dove down. Okay, now that I'm set up on the flat and I'm pretty confident that I know that the bait is here because of the birds and the flicking of the bait, I'm gonna go ahead and get ready to chum. I'm using Purina Tropical Fish Food, 33%. You can buy it in a 5-pound bag like this from us. You can go to our website, buy it from there, or you can buy a 50-pound bag at a local feed store. If they carry Purina, most likely they're gonna carry the 33% Tropical Fish Food. I highly recommend, if you can find it at a feed store, buy it from there because it's going to be less expensive. But if you don't have a feed store there, we do ship these bags straight to you. So free shipping, you can go on the website and get them. But if you do have a feed store near you that carries this stuff, don't buy it from us. Buy it from them because it's going to be less expensive. But if you know that you're not going to use a 50-pound bag for a while, Chad and I, we go through 50-pound bags like it's Christmas time. So, but if you don't get to fish as much, or you know you're not going to catch as much bait, you don't necessarily need to get a 50-pound bag. So what we're going to do is mix it up right now. And what I like to do is I like to get enough water just on top of this to get like a paste consistency to it. And then I start to spread it out. So let's go ahead and do that. And then I just start mixing away. Like I said, I like to get it into almost like a paste consistency. Not too dry, not too wet. Sometimes you'll add too much water, but it's okay because it will go from soupy to thick in no time. But I've got a really consistent base now to where I like to ball it up just about like that, so you have a good consistency. So let's go ahead and start spreading it out in the front of the boat and see if we can't get this bait attracted. All right, folks, the net I'm using today is the Talon cast net, 1.3 pounds per foot cast net. And I like this cast net as my all-around cast net simply because it's lightweight, I'm old, and it's easier for me to throw. So it's the 10-foot 1/4 inch, 1.3 pounds per foot net. We have them on sale on our website, but this is the net that I use to catch bait 90% of the time. In shallow water, in deep water, it doesn't matter. And the reason why I like to use it in deep water is because a lot of these bait fish now, even though they only live a year, they become very skittish because there's so many boats that are trying to catch the bait with their cast net. So the bait actually gets pretty smart. And when you throw the net in deep water applications, what happens is those fish will spread out of the chum. The net will sink down, and then all of a sudden they'll come up above the net and start eating the chum again. So what I do is I back off a little bit, and then I'll throw the net. They'll spread out, and then the net is slowly coming in, and they come back in before the net is over them, and then the net comes over them. So I like the lighter net application 90% of the time. I'm not saying it works all the time, but 90% of the time I'm throwing this net. I like to double, what I call the double load, is I'll spread it out like that, roll it over my wrist, grab my teeth, and know I'm not putting lead in my mouth. Come down like this, roll it over, and I'm ready to throw. And I've got to give a shout out to our buddy Brian for letting us borrow his boat. It's just been one of those things to where it's been a very frustrating situation. We've been without a boat for a while, and it's going to be a little bit. So we just want to say thank you to Brian again, Nannerman, for letting us borrow his boat. It's worked out great. Great friend, and that's what friends are for. Typically I would not borrow somebody's boat, but I feel comfortable enough now to where I can borrow his boat and know that if something does go wrong, we're going to take care of it. But anyway, let's get back to bait catching. I'm almost done. That one throw had quite a bit of bait in it. So, well, now that I've got bait, which was relatively pretty simple, I still have some chum left over. Me personally, what I like to do is I like to feed the fish gods. It just gives you good karma for next time you're coming out. So I just go ahead and dump out my bait or my chum, so I have good karma next time. Well, folks, we got our bait relatively pretty easy. I got enough to fill up a live well, got enough to fill up about half of a bucket. I didn't need a lot. I'm not going to be out here for very long, but I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of what I look for when I'm on the flats trying to catch bait. Sometimes it can be a science, but most of the time, if you stop and listen and look at your surroundings, it's going to tell you if there's bait fish in the area or not. So a lot of times I'll pull up to a flat and I'll just take off because I don't feel it. I've got to feel it. I've got to see the birds. I've got to see the mullet. I've got to see the bait flicking. So once you can find it, it's relatively pretty easy. But as the water temperature starts to drop going into late fall, winter time, these baits will get off the flat and they'll go in the deep water applications. They'll go to the markers. They'll go to the skyway. Skyway typically holds bait all year long. There's a few weeks that it won't be there, but most of the time bait is at the skyway. So what we're gonna do now is go and play around a little bit, but I do want to go and concentrate on some dock fishing. I want to explain to you what I'm looking for when I'm fishing docks. So let's go ahead, go out, do a little bit of fishing. I'm going to try some new areas for grouper and snapper, or actually for grouper, in about 10 feet of water, and see if I can't get any. And just like that, folks, I found a new grouper hole. Be close to keep him. He's shrinking. He shrank a lot. As I tell everybody, you got to put in the time. You definitely have to put in the time to find these spots. I'm only sitting in 17 feet of water, and there wasn't much there, but there was just enough difference in the bottom that's my second fish from there. All I'm doing is hooking this bait in the belly, using the slacker jig. The tide's running pretty decent, so I'm just using the slacker jig to get it down in the water column. And once it gets to a certain point, about even with the back of the boat is when they're hitting it. Like that, another one. There's fish busting. That looks like mackerel though. Now this one might keep. It's a good one. Starting to shrink. They're always starting to shrink. There we go. He won't keep, but still not a bad fish. They have those gill plates right in there that are sharp, and right there. And you don't want to get your hand too far up in their gills, because they're gills that cut you too. Well, I gotta say that finding new spots like this is such a good feeling. I love coming out and finding new areas. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you exactly what I'm looking at and why I'm looking at it. And so you get a better feel of what I'm looking at on the side imaging. Okay, so you really don't see much on the regular sonar, but these little lines right here are telling me that those are little ledges. Out in this area there are a ton of little ledges all along in here. So these little lines here, here, in here, here, they're telling me that there's little ledges and rocks in this area. Even though I didn't mark anything on my regular sonar, I'm relying on my side imaging to find these spots. It takes time. I'm out in the middle of nowhere, but it takes time to go in and look around. Sometimes you just got to float around and look if you want to take the time and learn this fishery, the grouper and snapper. It just takes time to find those spots, because you can't look at a mangrove island and you can't drive along and look for actual fish. So this is a little bit different. Learning your electronics is key. Like this is a Lowrance system. I typically use a Humminbird system, but understanding the side imaging, knowing what I'm looking at, immediately gives me an advantage. So I would say the biggest thing that you need to do is, if you don't understand your electronics, take time to understand. And there's tons of videos out there on different electronics, but you've got to come out and actually do it on your own to get a better feel of what it's showing you. So what I'm basically doing is throwing up current and letting that whitebait come down current with that Stewie jig. And if it will go down, which most of them are going down, I'm hooking them in the belly. But if they don't go down the first time, I'll send them back out there. But by the time they get about even with the boat is when I'm getting bit. But what I do is when I catch, whoop, there's one right there. Oh, I lost them. So what I do is when I cast out, I got foul hooked. That's the only problem with circle hooks, is they'll become foul hooked. But I'm going to throw him out there since he's been bit and see if he gets bit again. But the key is when you're doing it like this, is that you don't want to keep a lot of slack in your line, because what will happen is once that grouper hits it and starts to take off, he has all that line to be able to go into his spot and get rocked up. So what I do is I slowly reel up with it, and to kind of keep a tight line with it, so I can feel the bite quick and get on it quick. The only reason why I missed that fish is because it was foul hooked. Oh, they weren't dead bait. I just didn't feel him hit it. He just sucked it up. Not a monster, but I'll take him. Oh, look at that. He's got my other jig in his face. That goes to show you right there that sometimes these fish don't care. If they're hungry, they're hungry. Got that jig. Oh, look at that. He's got another jig right in his face. My line broke and I'm not sure how. Got my jig back, thank you. Oh my God, look at this. He had another jig with a bait fish in his face. So that's the third jig he ate. Crazy, he wasn't that big. He broke me off on both of these. Crazy, absolutely crazy. There's one, I was using that one earlier. There's two, and then three on my rod. Unbelievable. But as I said before, if you take the time to look, you're going to find these spots. And understanding what you're looking at, understanding your electronics is going to help you tremendously in the future. Knowing that and understanding that is huge. All right, what we're going to do now, folks, is we are going to stop by a couple docks, and I'm going to discuss what I like to look for when I'm fishing docks. One of the main things is water depth. Of course, most docks are going to have water depth, but I like to watch for big boats. I also like to watch and look at the pilings. the pilings will tell you a lot. If the dock has been there for a while, the pilings will have some pretty good growth on them. So that tells me right there that more than likely it's going to hold crustaceans, it's going to hold bait fish, and then it will hold the sport fish. So those are some of the things that I look for when I'm fishing on docks, is depth and growth on the barnacles on the pilings, and also water movement. It's got to have decent water movement for me to fish it. So I'm going to show you a couple of different docks, and hopefully we can catch some fish off of them. I typically like to fish docks during the winter time or at night in the summertime, but wintertime during the day, simply because the docks have heat to them and it attracts those fish to those docks. You can catch sheepshead, snapper, grouper, snook, redfish, trout. I've caught tarpon off docks. So there's a plethora of different fish that you can catch off of docks. So let's go see what we can find. All right, folks, the reason why I pulled up to this spot is because there's current breaks within this shoreline and within these docks. I like to find current breaks like this because those fish will sit in those breaks and wait for bait to be swept by. So that's what I'm kind of looking for, is fishing in the pockets of calmer water. So what I can do is present the bait naturally going through here. So when the bait's going through, I can present it on a more natural basis as it sweeps through, and the fish are facing into the tide. So you want to feed that bait back. What I'll do is I'll fish this part first, and then I'll move back to this dock behind me, and I'll work it underneath the floating dock. Oh. Well, folks, it really doesn't matter what time of year you're trying to fish docks, if it be winter or summertime. Again, like I said, summertime is very important at night with the dock lights. I've caught a lot of fish fishing at night on dock lights, but then again, during the winter time, I've caught a lot of fish on the docks because they retain heat. So it's very important to pick the right dock. As you see in these docks here, you see the growth on the pilings, and you also see the tide coming through there. Now again, what I did is I set up above those docks and let the bait come through the docks. Now you're going to get broke off quite a bit because those fish are going to go straight to the pilings, but you can finesse some of these fish out of those pilings and get fish to the boat. So I'm hoping that helped you a little bit. I didn't want to harp on it too much because there's not a ton to dock fishing, but you've got to know when to fish it and you got to know where to fish it. A bunch of docks look good, and most docks will hold fish, but I like to look for the docks that have the pilings with the most growth on them. So again, I just want to thank everybody for watching. We really appreciate all of the support. It's been crazy. I just want to reiterate that we do have a get-together this Saturday, October 2nd, at the Sunray Marine holiday location up in Holiday, Florida, which is near just north of Largo, Newport Richey area. We're gonna have food, we're gonna have a steel drum band, we're gonna have cornhole competition where you can win up to $100 off service for your boat. You can win shirts, you can win hats, you can win all kinds of stuff. So it's gonna be fun. We're also gonna have a couple other things going on. I invited Power Pole, but unfortunately they weren't able to make it because they have IBEX going on. And hopefully maybe Scott Fletcher with Fletcher Custom Rods will be there. But this is going to be a quarterly thing. We want to be able to do these things and have these get-togethers and have people come out and just meet other fishermen, meet us. We want to meet all of our friends, and so we're looking forward to it. Again, October 2nd at Sunray Marine and Holiday. We'll have all of our jigs, all of our cast nets, all of that stuff there also. And on top of that, we are going to be at Southeastern Fishing Tackle on Thursday evening for the South Tampa Chamber of Commerce event. So we'll be there also from 4:30 till 7, or about 4:30 to 6:30, just depending on what's going on. And so if you're near that area, come and see us. Again, thank you very much. Fish more, catch more, and we'll see you on the flip side.